We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Ray. That is the three Amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your derby weekend. Wow, it's a long time since I said that, isn't it? 8 years since the last derby. 1-1 draw at home. Mitrovic getting the goal for Newcastle. Here we are, FA Cup third round, 12:45 on the telly. Everybody getting excited, everybody getting nervous. Black Cats going into complete meltdown. But I was just talking to Mitch before we came on. For me personally, the man who holds all the cards literally is Craig Pawson tomorrow. Because if Craig Pawson handles this game as it should be handled, I think we're in for a cracker. If he takes the decision to book somebody very early, we might be at a disadvantage. We might be an advantage. There could be red cards galore. We've seen it all in derbies. We've seen hat-tricks. We've seen sending-offs. We've seen massacres, and we've been on the receiving end of some pretty poor performances and some belting goals by the Mackems. It's all to play for at the Stadium of Light, and let's just hope that the game itself goes off with no trouble. Everyone stays safe, everyone has a great day, and we come back with the place secured in the fourth round for the first time in Eddie Howe's tenure. But as always, to get us through the next 2 hours with all the usual banter and crack is Mitch, Steve, and George. And Mitch, you get the privilege of going first tonight. You're up on the top next to me. Let's start with this game. Normally we would finish the program, but it seems the wrong thing to do tonight because there's so many angles and so many things we can talk about. Let's leave the football for a little bit later and talk about what happened yesterday. A rather bizarre situation developed, which had apparently been in the planning for a couple of weeks, but it basically came out on social media with a few leaked photographs of this Black Cats bar, which the VIPs will be in, those who've paid £600 for a ticket, the corporate area. We're having it redecorated, and the price that's been quoted was the sponsor had paid in the region of 150,000 to the Sunderland Football Club to have this done. Now, the pictures we saw were varied. We saw some wonderful stuff on the on the panel, and they'd spelled Howe correctly. They'd managed to rename the bar. Even Peter Reid got a mention. This, of course, sent Sunderland fans quite rightly into meltdown. Various podcasters going absolutely light, people going absolutely bonkers, well-established journalists and reporters kicking off on social media, said it was the darkest day for this particular regime's ownership of the club. This is the worst thing that anyone could ever do. The list is endless, but wow, what a derby's eve we've had, Mitch. Complete meltdown on your side.
It's not like shitting on their own seats. Oh no, they've done that as well, haven't they? I mean, of all the things, did anybody have on the bingo card ahead of the derby game, Mackham's enter into civil war? And I know people are scared, or not scared, but concerned that they can use this anger. We know all about what happens to internalized anger. Let's see what happens if we get a goal in the first 5 or 10 minutes. It's set up whereby it's taken some of the pressure off us because they've plunged themselves into this abyss. Me and Steve were telling people on here 2 years ago, probably even more than 2 years ago, what the Mackham finances were like, how perilous they were. Now, some people chose not to believe that. Some people obviously thought we were talking out our arse. I think some people couldn't believe it. But it's not that long ago, they were losing £1 million a month. That hasn't righted itself overnight. They're still struggling to pay the bills and keep everything on an even keel. Their fans have talked about how little their squad cost. Well, there's a reason for that. Because you don't have the money to spend. And so when somebody comes along and says, there's a wedge, can we do what we like with this bar with our fans in on Derby Day? Somebody in that club's made a financial decision now. Was it the owner? We may get some insight on that in the next few days. Probably won't, but we never know. Was it the CEO? Who's made that call? But you've got to admit, if somebody done that at part of St James's Park the other way around, there'd have been hell on. And we know, and again, Steve and I have said this from people that we've been talking to for a long time, Sunderland have been desperate to try and defrost relationships a little bit. For me, is that because they want to cozy up to use players like Miley and get loans off her? Don't know. But there's definitely been some attempt to build bridges. And there's obviously been a conversation going on because war flags were involved. And that means there's cross-club conversation going on. And it doesn't matter how they want to dress that up and deny in statements, which were interestingly printed in black and white as well, by the way, that this has been something that has been entirely financially driven, as far as I'm concerned. And so they've managed to shoot themselves in the foot 4 or 5 times before they've even got a pistol out their holster. It really has changed a little bit of the dynamic going into this game, because we're now looking at that saying, good God, they still can't organise a pay-up in a brewery down the road, can they? And it's taken away a little bit of the bravado because the anger now is turned inward. And like I said, we know what inward anger does to a club, particularly if we can get the upper hand early on. We know where that'll go. And so it's one of the best things I think that could have happened this week, and certainly one of the most unpredictable. And I think somebody called it right. I don't know who said this. We'll be talking about this in 50 years' time. Yeah, we will.
Marco Gabbiadini.
Was it Marco? Was it?
Yeah.
You know, it is the kind of thing where every now and again that'll get brought up. Initially, when I first saw the first pictures, I thought somebody had been busy with Photoshop. I was checking, has Frank Chipper been on? Has Manx Pie been on? Have they been? And I'm thinking, oh, this is bloody real. And it's one of the most outstanding and dumbfounding things I think I've ever seen ahead of a derby. I mean, what do you think, Steve?
Well, on the actual Black Cat bar situation, I mean, when I first saw it, I thought this was probably one of the most brilliant hoaxes that had ever been played. It was a gotcha like no other gotcha. My first thought was, you know what? Someone has really taken them for a ride here. Someone in Newcastle has not anything to do with the football club, but some supporter somewhere said, you know what? Let's string this along. Let's get a company. Let's see if we can decorate the bar for them. Let's put an offer to them, and somebody's bitten. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, that is that is too Machiavellian to even contemplate. It's the sort of thing that could happen, but there again, would somebody stump up the money? Would what would have happened if the club had asked for the money up front? Would it never have happened? Has somebody been naive at the football club? And then I started to think a little bit further and thought to myself, and I could understand the meltdown. I mean, everybody, and you just have to look at the right-hand side of our screen here to see the comments that are coming through. And most Newcastle fans would have been doubly annoyed if it had happened to them. But then it was the manner in which the meltdown occurred. It was the way that it just grew and grew and grew. I had visions of Sunderland fans going through old telephone directories and checking names against people who worked at the club, you know, to see whether they lived on Tyne's side rather than Weir's side. That's how paranoid they've now become. And
they're looking for reds under the bed, aren't they? Really?
Well, exactly. Reds under the bed entirely, you know, or blacks under the bed, black and whites under the bed. They've got, but you know what? You're right. It's added to the whole spice of the game. It has taken the pressure immensely off Eddie and the boys, and us fans, because we've had something to sort of, you know, take the pressure off us in a way, because we haven't been talking about the problems that we had, the injury problems we've had, the results that we've had previously. It's been probably the most relaxed I've felt in the last sort of 24 to 48 hours than I have since the draw was made, to be perfectly honest, because I don't know about you guys, but when the draw came out, it was very much you know, this is something that you've always hoped for and you've always said never happens. And when it actually dropped, it was like, wow, hang on a minute. Is this real? It was as though, you know, you had visions of the balls being put back in the bag and the FA go, no, we didn't mean that. So, but going back to what you're saying about the owners and about finances and stuff like that, it's only, as you say, 2 or 3 seasons ago that they were so close to liquidation. It was unbelievable. I mean, the receivers were banging on the door. They had owners that were really just weren't at the races. And the guy they've got now, young Kirill Dreyfus, has come along and he's put his money where his mouth is as best he can. He's steadied the ship. He's brought people in to run the football club. And until this week, I'd heard little bits of utterings, but not much. Mainly people who were disappointed that after the playoff semis, where they didn't make it through to the final, and I think it was probably a godsend that they didn't, because they would be languishing below Burnley, languishing, you know, literally at rock bottom if they'd managed to come up, because the club couldn't have afforded to get into the Premier League at that particular time. So I think it's very disingenuous of them to point the finger in that direction. Somebody within the inner sanctum of the football club has dropped a big one, but I think more than likely, because somebody's flashed the money, there's been an opportunity, and somebody's got, you know what, there's the sponsor. I mean, I've heard ITV are involved, I've heard Sky are involved, I've heard, you know, various other tales, none of which we'll ever get to the bottom of. But when you hear their owner's statement, you know, he's taking full responsibility, and no doubt will hold the biggest of inquests to find out, because it has humiliated him as well. You know, it's not just the football club, it's humiliated him. The fact that he lives overseas, coming over for this game, and then suddenly lands in what would have been quite an exciting game for him, the biggest game that probably the football club's had under his sole tenure, and it's all been blighted by it. The only question left and that's remaining, Mitch, is, was this Tony Mowbray? Was it his final one? Tony go, you know what?
Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
There's a little side game playing here. And it's, you know what? That'll just set them off again, won't it?
Tony's last revenge.
Set them off on another tangent again. But I mean, it's taken the pressure off us immensely, because I think we were under pressure on Tuesday morning in the build-up, because the build-up does get to us. But I'm not hearing any Newcastle fans at all sitting there going, I'm frightened, we're going to knock, or anything like that.
I think for me, it's one of the best things to relax us going into this game. I mean, Dad, have you seen anything like this in all your years?
No.
Newcastle Sunderland derby.
Not such a calamity, no. Not come on, just a few days before the bloody match. I mean, it just beggars belief. And somebody put it on the strap down there about what would have happened in Newcastle if Mike Ashley done that. God, it'd have been on the streets, wouldn't it? It wouldn't have just been this. Wouldn't have been just social media. They'd have been knocking the doors down at St James's Park together.
Me and Steve would have been organising protests and printing banners again.
Exactly. It's just monumental. And you two lads have hit the nail on the head. The important bit for us isn't the fact that they've humiliated themselves, it's they've taken all the pressure off us. I mean, if ever there was a game where we were under pressure, we're the Premier League club, we're the top dogs, people are so expecting everything from us and very little from them. But now they're the focus, not us at all. We're not even in the frame at the moment. And as I say, if Ashley or anybody else at Newcastle United had done that, it would have been immense. I mean, we've had fallouts before important games between players and management and all sorts of things. Going back even to Joe Harvey, who when he was a player, went on strike once. So, you know, we've had all sorts of weird things, but nothing as monumental as this. I mean, this is it's like us walking into Bar 1892 and finding it all painted red and white, because that's what it was going to be, wasn't it? The reverse of that.
Right.
Yeah. Just unbelievable. And, well, I just know what people would say. You know, there's a guy in Bar 1892, just before he goes out onto the pitch, he goes up to the FA Cup final pitch at the top of the room. He punches the wall every match. He would have put his fist through the wall if it had been like that. He wouldn't have just punched it. He would have put his fist through it. And it just is colossal, so colossal. Yeah. But as I say, the big thing for us is, wow, if you wanted a way to lift the pressure off black and whites, everybody black and white, they did it for quite successfully, and it's going to run. That's not going to go away in 5 minutes. That owner's going to have to explain all sorts of things, but it isn't going to go away in 5 minutes.
You know what it's done though? It's washed over the fact that people going to the match have got to be in town for 9:15. It's washed over the fact that the pubs aren't opening at 9 o'clock as everybody thought. It's washed over the fact that you've got to sit on a bus for 2 hours to get to Sunderland. It's washed over the fact that you're going to have to sit in the ground probably for an hour and a half after the game. And it's washed over the fact that there's every possibility, and they haven't announced it yet, that all of a sudden it'll be no alcohol in among the 6,000. You know, you know it's coming. Yes. You know what's coming. Especially after everything, all of that's been forgotten about. I've barely come across anyone who has mentioned any of those 4 or 5 factors that were very much at the top of our moan list 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
Well,
agree.
About. Well, I hate to add to that grief, but I know the company that put all the furniture in the Stadium of Light, and our director is a magpie. And he made sure the fitters all had stickers, black and white stickers, Newcastle United stickers. So every joint in the furniture in that building has got a black and white sticker on it. Every joint, and some of them too. So if that sets people tearing the furniture apart, well, it should, because I know that's true. And the lad had told me that wouldn't lead me astray. He sent magpie fitters, and it took a whole batch of the sticker things with the club on and stuck them on everything that they touched. It was covered with black and white, every joint. So, but it monumental. It's just unbelievable. And for us, couldn't have happened at a better time. I mean, you know, wow. And I think you two lads are right. There's a financial. What would cause somebody to do that? Money. That's what caused somebody to do that. Somebody saw the goose that laid the golden egg, but unfortunately, backed away too late to get out of it and had to do it. So, yeah, all about money, that, and a desperate opportunity to make a bit of cash out of the Magpies, and because they're going to regret it for a long time. And I'm sure it was Mark Gagby. He said, instead of talking about football for the next 50 years, we'll be talking about this.
Yeah.
You know who's missing from all this? The fake shake.
Yes.
Yeah, he's in the background somewhere. Definitely in the background somewhere. I mean, look, Mitch, Steve's already said he's not worried. He's not seen any Newcastle fans who are concerned or worried about this. A lot of people looking forward to it. Big contingent of Newcastle fans going down. It's a Premier League side against a Championship team, but a lot of the Sunderland fans I've spoken to have said, they see it as a free hit. If they get beat and they get embarrassed, then, that's where it should be. But if they win, the bragging rights are theirs. It's one of those, isn't it, Mitch? It's a game of football at the end of the day. It's a big game of football for us in the Northeast. And, it's about local bragging rights. That's what it's about.
That's easy for them to say, but put yourself the opposite way around. And we were the club in the lower division with the 30-40 million pound squad. They were coming to our patch, and we've got a chance to stick one up them. And we're 1-0 down and down to 10 men after 10 minutes, and we'll get humped 6-0. That would kill me. Free hit? That's no free hit. And anybody telling you that they think it's a free hit is telling them to calm and soothe themselves. If we go there and hammer them, it'll hurt, and it'll hurt for years. Because when will the next get a chance to put that right? And so they can keep their 6 in a row, and all of that. We went a generation in the 70s and 80s not seeing Newcastle United lose to Sunderland, so that balances out. But it hurts. When you lose, it hurts. And anybody telling you it's a free hit is telling you that to soothe themselves. Put the shoe on the other foot. How would it feel? I tell you what, this has done for me this week is I'm as you can probably tell from some of the WhatsApps I've been sending you today, I'm quite excitable today. I got my hands on a speak and spell emulator, and you can imagine what I've been doing with that all day. And that's because I'm now relaxed. I'm now ready for it. I've just chatted to Julie, who organises the Dubai Mags over here. We've had to move venues because we've got 176 booked for tomorrow in Dubai. So we've had to go to a bigger venue down the road from Brooklyn Bar, the Grandeur Hotel.
Brilliant.
Who used to hosting football because they usually host Rangers, and they had a free weekend and could accommodate with, and we're happy to do a brunch for her as well. So we're doing a 3 till 6, all you can eat, all you can drink for 280 dirhams, and which is bloody good value, I have to say. And I'm now getting excited for that. We've got cameras coming. We might have a special guest joining. We've been trying very hard to entice somebody along. Let's see if that pulls out. But either way, I'll be doing some gobshiting and emceeing tomorrow more than likely. And I can't wait. I'm actually now very, very up for it. If you'd asked me this earlier in the week, I think I was a little apprehensive. Because of all the things that have gone on before and the things going around. But now, I feel like the ice has been broken. And it's a case of now, right, just let's bring it on. And that's very much how I feel now.
Yeah, Steve, you're not nervous at all about this?
No, not nervous at all. As I say, I was when the draw was made, because it was like a case of, the old heart starts to go a little bit, and you start to think, and rightly, your immediate thought is the 6. But this week has really calmed me down, and the last 48 hours, absolutely. I mean, it's the right way to be. You don't want to go there full of trepidation and angst and concern. You know, you don't want to be watching on the TV in the same way either. You want to enjoy the game. You want to enjoy the performance. You want to be with the players. You want to, if you're calm and the players are calm, then you're going to enjoy the game. And I'm sure that this is the way that Eddie Howe obviously looks at all the games that the team manages. He wants his players to be the calmest they can be. And he wants the fans to be up for it, but we've got to. It's not a case of being realistic. It's just a case of just being nice and steady. Let the opponents panic.
Yeah.
Let the opponents' fans be the ones who start to moan when a pass goes astray, or when the goalkeeper makes a mistake and it goes out for a corner, or he clears the ball and it goes out for a throw in. Let the opposition supporters get onto their players while we just gradually go about our business and get behind the team and support them. And it's quite refreshing actually, because especially after some of the results we've had recently, where you know you've gone through every single emotion. 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was disappointment. Then it turns to a little bit of angst, and it turns to a bit of anger and proper annoyance. So this has been like a breath of fresh air this last 48 hours or so, Steve. And I tell you what, it's going to be. I'm quite jealous of Mitch in a way. I know that sounds silly, but knowing what the atmosphere is going to be like with 175 plus Geordies in that bar with their drum and with the atmosphere that gets created. I mean, I was there only last month for the Chelsea game, and that was one of the fixtures I covered. The Man United game, another one. But the good thing is that this is a really, really good kickoff time for the Dubai Mags and for everybody else in the MENA region, and they're going to have a great time. And this is something that probably adds that little bit more spice to the game, the kickoff time. You know, if it had been an evening game, yes, it would have been a totally different kettle of fish. But the fact that it's on TV, it's a lunchtime kickoff, but fans have got every ample opportunity to get up, have their breakfast, and then really start to get into whatever they want to do before kickoff. You know, the ones who are going to be going to struggle are going to be the 6,000 on the buses. I feel for, you know, I find that is really, really disappointing that they haven't trusted Newcastle fans to travel on the metro and just you know, be sensible enough, and why the decision was made and what the benefit of the overkill was, I just don't know. But all of a sudden, with like 24 hours to go, you've got politicians now coming in questioning it, and I find that quite disingenuous, to be perfectly honest, because I feel as though that when somebody waits for this long, no matter who you are, whether you're the mayor of North Tyneside or the other person who wants to be the mayor of the region, to come out now and start to speculate and to cogitate about the kickoff time and how Newcastle fans are travelling, I thought that's just electioneering of the worst kind. Yeah, and absolutely. I'm sure it will be remembered when it comes down to the election as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest, George, I was disappointed to see the news this morning. You know, one of the main news stories leading on Good Morning Britain was Newcastle United and Sunderland's derby. And, you know, to have a politician on, a local politician, Jamie Driscoll it was, to be fair, he came on and spoke, you know, about it and, you know, said, look, it's a football match. And I get where Steve's coming from on this particular issue, but it shouldn't have been a headline news story. It's not as if we've had, you know, severe problems at this derby. We've had skirmishes outside. I think it's really because a horse was punched, which was completely unacceptable. And the guy was arrested and, you know, he was punished. It was because it was such a bizarre incident. It got national news headlines, and that was almost used as a whip to crack Newcastle with this morning. You know, and Jamie Driscoll said the right thing. It's a minority of supporters at all football clubs who carry out these kind of things. So it's, you know, I think we all really should have been given the opportunity to just travel as we saw fit. You know, go down on the train, go down on buses, go down in the car, go down on the metro. You know, that's what we've done in the past. Yes, there's considerably more of us going down on this occasion because there's 6,000 tickets. But, we're all capable of behaving ourselves. You know what I mean? And that's what the police get paid for. To stop any potential disorder. So they could have done it. They could have done it in a different way. It's a bit disappointing, George. I've got to agree with Steve.
Yeah, absolutely disappointing. And I agree with his disappointment at the fact that the politicians at this very late stage have even got involved, even start to say things. If they wanted to say something, it should have been at the beginning when all these things were being sorted out so they could have an impact. I told you so afterwards just isn't good enough. But sadly, it's a bit like politics is at the moment, if there's an election shortly, Christ knows who I'm going to vote for. It's certainly not going to be Labour. I hate saying that publicly because my family, I can hear them all spinning in their bloody grave at this leader that they've got now. But never mind. And the same thing locally. You see, you've got Jamie Driscoll, in my view, was treated abominably by Starmer and his crew. Not saying anything against the young lass that's standing in his place. But at the same time, all of these things are hindsight. And this particular piece of hindsight to do with this football match is really grinding. It really gets up your nose because we don't need it. And as Steve's rightly said, every little thing like that they can pick out is used as a stick to beat Newcastle fans. Always has been. And, when you go back as far as punching horses to get a story, you're really raking the bottom of the shed, aren't you? It's quite awful. The other side of it is, of course, is that it just feeds the narrative elsewhere about Newcastle United, Saudi Arabia, sports washing. It just drags it all up again. It pulls it all out of the woods. So, yeah, not good this morning. You're absolutely right, Steve. It would if it merited a mention because it's an exception. It's like it's an exception because it's a derby game. But if it wasn't a derby game, it wouldn't even be being mentioned at all. So it's not the right time, not the right approach. And just another stick to beat Newcastle United with, in my view.
Okay, as always, got plenty to get through tonight. Here is the day I met. The day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting Newcastle United players past and present, or whoever's works for the club. And Alistair Legg sent us in a couple of photos. He says, in light of the pending Mackham thrashing, I thought you might like a legend on the day I met. The day I met Shola. And I do have the photograph somewhere. Where is it? It's disappeared into the ethos. Anyway, I'll continue with the email and I will get the photograph up. I do have the second photograph, Tito, because it's a two-part of this one. He says, the day I met Shola was in the Blackbird in Ponteland on Christmas Eve, and he was the usual perfect gentleman when I asked for a photo. He wanted to talk and he wished us all a great Christmas. He said, I was also fortunate enough to bump into Graham Swan at Earl's Court, and here he is. Got that photograph. I will find the other one. At Earl's Court Tube Station following the Chelsea game. He's a great lad and is bringing his son up as a passionate Toon fan as well. He got great knowledge of the club and was clearly as disappointed as we all are. I didn't mean that to sound patronising, he said. Let's hope that Saturday is the start of the upturn in our form and results. In Eddie we trust. And that's from Alistair Legg. So thank you, Alistair, for sending that in. I'll dig up the other photo. It's got lost in amongst these other ones somewhere, and I will find it. Because I've got a couple of others. Vince, great to send this in. Vince meeting Tino Aspria. Vince from the fans forum, of course. Good photo of that, Vince. And I found a couple of photographs. Now, this was apparently the guy who used to look after the players at the club. Now, I don't have a name for this guy, but the photographs that have been circulated and sent to me are absolutely fantastic. I'm just going to
Is it Alan Thompson?
I think that's the guy, you know. I think I met Alan back in the day.
Alan
You've got to
Thompson.
remember, you've got to remember when I first got these photographs, they came and I wasn't. They weren't submitted as a day I met. They were sent as a who. Do you know who this guy is and what he used to do? Now he used to work at the club, is my understanding. I think he used to work at the club in the not making the tea, but I think he used to do either security in the press room or in the players' lounge. And if anybody can answer the question who it was, there's one more photograph I can show you today.
Well, that's Alan Thompson. Yeah, definitely.
It is.
Definitely.
So that's Ian McBrenier and Tim Healy. So do you know anything more about Alan Thompson?
Great cricketer, fantastic cricketer in his own sporting career. Would love to have been a football player, but just didn't make it. And so, along with a lot of other guys, he got a job at St James's Park eventually. And my first memory is of him being sort of a minder for the young uns. That's how I know who he is. If we went anywhere and you wanted anything, Alan used to do it for you. He was the minder for Ted Hughes and the others that ran the youngsters, and I'm sure that's who it is.
All right, great stuff. Well, there we go. A little bit of history. I knew George would know. I should have just asked George. I should have just made it an Ask George section. But thanks for sending them in. I do know there's a couple of other photos, and I will find Alistair's other photo, and I'll show it before the end of the show. If you've got any photographs like that, send them to me and lads on Twitter, or go to our Facebook group, nufc matters, and stick them on there. Okay, let's get back to having a chat about the derby. They're travelling down, Mitch. We've touched on it there. We're travelling down on the buses. We should have been given. We should have been given a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? A bit more trust, shouldn't we? Really, in being able to do this. I think it's going to be organised chaos tomorrow morning. Getting down there on a bus.
Haven't been in a convoy for a bubble game once. They run a very fine balance, particularly when they set the kick-off time. In answer to a couple of questions in the strap, by the way, kick-off time over here, we're 4 hours ahead at the minute. So for us in Dubai, it's 4:45 kick-off. Feel sorry for Simon in San Diego, who's exactly 12 hours behind. They'll be having an early breakfast to watch the game over there. But yeah, it's a cracking kick-off time for us, no doubt about it. Not so good if you're travelling down to Sunderland on the bus. You strike a fine balance. We want to get as many people as we can, many of our fans as we can in the ground. However, the police want to have a say in how that's managed. Both clubs want to try and manage it as best as possible to show that we can be trusted and be fully responsible. I personally have a lot of faith in football fans. I'm tired of football fans being demonised. We seem to be the instant problem. Oh, there's a drug problem, that would be the football fans. There's an alcohol problem, that would be the football fans. I'm sorry, there's a lot of intelligent individuals and upstanding individuals who are football fans who are just as passionate as me, who would like to go into that, will be going to that game, and they don't need to be mollycoddled on a bus. But at the same time, prioritising safety is imperative. I don't think all of our fans fully understand the bus procedure. I think it'll be chaos getting the right people on the right buses, because apparently you can get an earlier bus but not a later bus. And some people are still interpreting that the other way around. Well, that could end in tears. Apparently, if your mate has an earlier travel time, you can travel with them if you're on a later travel time, but not vice versa. That's one just to get out there and make clear for everyone. I've double checked this. As I say, I've done it. they said they wouldn't allow the pubs to open for us for that game. They ended up allowing it at something like silly o'clock in the morning. And for those outside of Newcastle, I can tell you what will be happening in the North Shields. I'd probably better not, but I know the score. You guys have seen my suggested itinerary for what will be happening from the North Shields Mags tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so, there's always ways around it. And so, I think from a police point of view, they're wanting to minimise any sort of negativity. However, it does seem at the minute like overkill, and it's really quite disappointing that there's that trust's been lost in a matter of years. It's only 8 years since we played them. People have obviously got either short memories or twisted memories, unfortunately. So we just have to be grateful that we've got as many in the ground as we have. Is it better to have 6,000 than 2,500? Oh, God, aye. But I'm sure there was a more happy medium way to do that. But unfortunately, that seemed to be scrumpled up and thrown into the round filing cabinet very, very quickly.
Definitely did. I've got the photograph now, which I'd lost earlier. There we go. That's a good photo, Alistair. Thank you, mate, for sending that in. Great photo of you in the Mackin's. So thanks for taking the time to send that in. See you tomorrow morning as well. I believe we're on the same bus. Yeah, Steve, the buses. Wow, incredible. You've already touched on it. The ticket allocation, though, is important. It gives Eddie Howe and the lads an opportunity to have, double the amount of supporters in the ground that would normally have to cheer the lads on, and that's going to be important to more. Eddie Howe says we all know that. Yeah. If we can silence the home crowd early on with an early goal, it's going to play a major part, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is about the atmosphere, isn't it? At the end of the day, and you'll get a far better atmosphere with 6,000 than you will with 2. And we'll look at it. Have to look at everything on the positive now. The decision's been made about how the fans have to travel, what they have to put up with to get there. And what we've got to concentrate on is once we're in the ground, 100% behind the team. And there's no question on a game like this that is what will happen. And it should be like that from both sides, which again just makes for an absolutely brilliant atmosphere, Steve. I suppose you could in one breath say that the rest of the country is going to be looking at Newcastle, Sunderland. They're going to be thinking, you know what, the Geordies and the Mackins, they let their mouths go so much about this being a big game, and it's bigger than Glasgow's Celtic and Glasgow Rangers. It's bigger than Man City and Man United. It's bigger than Arsenal and Tottenham. It's bigger than Portsmouth and Southampton. All of this, the Bristol club, derbies, Cardiff. So now is our opportunity to show, yes, it is. We can have an atmosphere that lasts for 90 minutes. We can have a performance on the pitch that excites the rest of the country and shows what the Northeast is all about. And that's probably the icing on the cake, if you like, in terms of where we are with this game. From a very, very parochial point of view, it's get stuck into them, smash them, destroy them, turn them completely over, and have not just the first laugh but the last laugh. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. That's what from a purely parochial point of view. And if there was a Sunderland fan sitting in George's seat now, he would say exactly the same. We know that because they're just as passionate as we are when it comes to what they want for their football club. But we know where we stand, and we know what we've got behind us in terms of the 6,000.
You were saying about looking on the bright side. They've given with the perfect reason to look at our glasses as half full this week.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of that lift under the pressure.
Yeah,
for me anyway.
Yeah, I've forgotten that we've still got 11 players out injured. I've forgotten that we've only won one in our last 8 games. I've forgotten all about the Champions League that they've never ever played in. I've forgotten about the fact that we weren't really that bothered about playing in the Europa Cup. I've forgotten about the Carabao Cup, which we were in the final of last season as well. All of that's gone because you look at the future. Once the game's over, you move on and you look forward. And now we're looking forward to a 12:45 kickoff down at the Stadium of Light, Steve.
Yeah, looking forward to it. George, the 6,000 tickets and the fact that we've got to travel down on a bus, what did you make of that?
Thousands, isn't it? I mean, that was a good move. But I find because of my era, find all this business about the buses is weird. I mean, had it been me and Harry going to the match like we would have done, what we would have done is we got up, got ready, walked through the Tyne tunnel, picked up a Sunderland bus to go with all the Mackhams, ride all the way to Roker Park with the Mackhams, and then go in the Roker end with them and just stand in the same place as they would. There wouldn't have been even hardly any separation in those days. But life's changed because of a few idiots, and Neil's absolutely right. It gets right up my craw that football fans are blamed for everything, and that's not new. I've had experiences of coming home from away games, of trying to go into a hotel and get something to eat and something to drink and being turned away because they knew you were a football fan. And not, half a dozen. I can remember half a dozen were reporting a hotel to the AA. It had a five-star AA badge outside, so we all wrote to the AA because we're members and said, "Get this place off your list," sort of thing. But did they take any notice? No, because we're football fans. That's why. So it just pains me. It is that people think and talk about the game like that, and then they compare the violence in football compared to the violence in rugby. Well, I can tell you, the only reason you don't hear more about the violence in rugby clubs is because the parents club together and pay for it before the bloody police are called. That's the difference. Whereas football fans don't have the money to do that. Oh, it's becoming a political, social program tonight, Steve. Sorry. I think 6,000 is great, and I've no doubt the 6,000 it very soon make a lot more noise than the 40,000 of the other option, especially if we're getting the lead. And the whole issue about the buses, you can't get your ticket till you get on the bus, and you've got to sit on the bus till you go, and then you've got to wait an hour and a half to come off. And it's why in the sort of civilized society we live in, we can't just come to some better arrangement than that, or some way of channeling fans to in and out of the stadium in a much more sensible way. But such is life, and I suppose the people that have decided are probably the police, and there's a chief constable up there whose heads on the block if it goes wrong. So that's why we're stuck with what we are, because that certainly would be the case if it goes wrong and these double-decker buses get pelted all the way back to Newcastle and stones dropped off flyovers and that sort of thing. He'll not have a job next week.
Well, she'll be out on a limb.
Absolutely. So it's sad, Steve, but it's just what we've got to live with, and as the lads have already said eloquently, it's the stick that football fans get beaten with. Incidentally, the doorbell, I tried to persuade her to come on to say hello on the show. That was the magistrate that sentenced Joe Linton when he was drink driving. She was chairman of the bench.
When she had no option. Hands were tied behind her back, George.
Not biased at all, of course, is she? No, definitely not.
Have you guys heard anything about another 300 tickets coming our way? Corporate ones.
There was
Rumours.
Yeah, there was rumours, but I don't know I don't think that's true. I'll be surprised if it was. But again, people have made comments saying that, the reason why the black cap ball was going to be decorated in black and white was because Newcastle fans would have smashed it up if it was red and white. No, they wouldn't, because this was first of all, this it wouldn't happen. And secondly, that was the corporate area. That's the 600 in the corporate who are paying 600 quid tickets, you know. And I'm not being funny, but you just had to look at the points that you needed to get to this game to understand that, you know, no Newcastle fan worth his salt is going to do anything to jeopardise and risk losing access. We had one fan who made some comments on somebody's video cast coming out of a ground that then got broadcast, and he finds himself banned from the stadium for 3 seasons and £1,000 fine in the local magistrates court. You know, so Newcastle fans aren't gonna. That's the biggest threat. That's the biggest thing hanging over anyone who's going to the match. That, you know, if you're going to get caught in bother, then you're not going to be back inside of St James's Park for an awful long time. That's all that needed to be said, really. And I think the vast majority of fans who would have been going to that game would have known that. And it's the same with every game that we've travelled to, up and down the country at ridiculous times of the day and night, for to watch Newcastle United. So in that respect, you could say that, you know, the whole trust went out of the window. And I don't mean the supporters' trust, by the way, before anyone has a pop at it. The whole trust of trusting fans to act in an adult way, to go to a football game, went out of the window for some reason. So that's the nature of where we are, guys. But no, Mitch, just a rumor. That's all. And again, probably just a rumor as much as anything. But be interesting.
Yeah, will be. Clubs seem to be cracking down on that. Blue Rhythm Boy says banning people of revoking tickets and memberships. Yeah, I heard another story today. Somebody who had given their ticket in good faith to somebody. That person likes to smoke, shall we say, funny cigarettes, and had one in his pocket. A drugs dog caught him with that in his pocket. They confiscated it. They allowed him to go into the game after taking his name. Of course, the guy who was at the game gave his name and address, as he would, thinking he'd done nothing wrong, not realising that doing that's the person whose ticket it was, who he had given the ticket to, would lose his loyalty points. So, they are doing a lot of that. He's not banned, that kid, but he has lost 200 loyalty points, and it's a hell of a lot to lose. All because of a mistake. I think he's taken it a little bit further. I think he's taken it to an ombudsman, hoping that he can overturn it, because he gave the ticket away in good faith. He couldn't get to the game. There was no transport, there was no trains on that particular day. So, fingers crossed that there is a bit of leniency if circumstances mean that you did it in good faith, but you were unaware of what was going to happen. There's got to be some kind of appeal mechanism set in place. You can't just go banning people. I just don't think that's right.
Steve. Well, Steve, when all this started, this stuff about tickets and about the club putting fake tickets in to catch people out deliberately. That's wide open for somebody to challenge legally, because that's just wrong. It's not legal to do that. The club's actually breaking the law, and I'm not surprised if somebody's gone to an ombudsman. If somebody with the right sort of money decided to get upset, they could make a whole legal case out of it, because it's just basically wrong. It's like the old-fashioned days when the coppers used to set the girls on the street corners up by sending a fake customer. Gone. You can't do that now. Setting people up like that, it's just not on. It's just against the law. And for it to be happening to football fans, in fact, I've seen people talking about tickets. That's what he said, tickets. But really, the whole situation about the way you're talking about grown up, Steve. What's less grown up than the way the club's treating fans about these tickets now? What's wrong with me giving my grandson my ticket to go to an away match because I can't go? What's wrong with Steve giving his brother a ticket or his nephew a ticket to go to a match because he can't go? It seems to me that they're almost saying they'd rather see them appearing on bloody tout sites later in the week rather than giving them to real fans. And I just find all of that absolutely part of the issue I've got with with the takeover now is just they've done lots of wonderful things, but they've done very little for fans, in my view. Sorry.
2 years, Jules. I will give that a mention. Dave Harrison passed away 2 years ago. He was a big supporter of the show, big supporter of the food bank. Top man, Steve Hasty, wasn't he?
He was, yes, and a relative of mine as well. His mum and my mum were cousins. That's the way that Tyneside is, I suppose. But great lad, really good lad. Big shock when he passed away. Thoughts always with the family. And when it comes to anniversaries as well, you know, it doubly reminds you of how fragile life is, and you know, how we treasure it and how we treasure our friendships as well, Steve.
Yep, yeah. Okay, we're just about halfway through the show, and thanks to everybody watching. We'll never take it for granted. Over 500 of you tuned in. Quick ad break, and then we will be back after this.
A big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website mrvickys.co.uk or drop them an email, info@mrvickys.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the Northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. We've also got an event coming up next year. It's in January the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's an evening with Nobby Solano. Tickets are available on Voucher for £20. Don't forget, Supermac and Gibbo do every pre-match at Louis Liquor Store. It's free entry, children welcome, and there is great food by Fed's Fried Chicken. They're usually on pre-match and sometimes post-match at Louis Liquor Store.
Yeah, big shout out as well, Stu Flyboy, another one who sadly missed in the chat. Somebody who, again was a regular supporter of the show. So a big shout out to Stu Flyboy's family. We do miss these viewers and friends. It has to be said. Okay, we've got another hour of the show. As always, we've got plenty to get through. Time for Tweet of the Week. I do have a little chuckle to myself since we cleaned this part of the show up, and some of the people sending us now. This one's for the show. This one's not for the show. Hilarious. This one was sent. It was before Christmas. When you're trying to get home as fast as you can, but you start to lose the battle.
Oh dear! And that's a clean one.
It's like, well, it is clean if you know what I mean, George. How to make a chicken salad? Step 1: prepare the salad. Step 2: give it to the chicken. Very good. And my wife's going into labour. What should I do? Is this her first child? No, this is her husband.
Oh dear.
And well, that's a poor font choice, lads. Thanks, Stephen. Clearly says 10 flickering lights there.
Yep.
And if you want to see some immature cheese, here you are: mature cheddar and immature cheddar.
Oh dear me.
Anyone remember Batman? Here we go. Na 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 na. Batman.
Brilliant.
Oh.
And this was great from Brian. Matilda's front three. I was given permission to show this. Alexander Isak, Miguel Almiron, and Anthony Gordon.
Brilliant. Well done, Matilda.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good likeness, that.
I hope Matilda's not his wife. I hope Matilda's his bed.
Definitely not his wife. Obviously, a lot of fun and games this week. Now start painting their stadium black and white. That was doing the rounds yesterday. And what a welcoming bunch. It was just, as you say, the club that keeps on giving. We had a whole host of things like that yesterday. And Paddy Power, as always, getting in on the act, breaking as well as decorating their stadium with slogans welcoming their hated rivals. Sunderland to confirm they'll drape a giant Saudi flag from the West Stand and award Sean Longstaff the freedom of the city and commission an Anton Deck statue on Millennium Way. Yeah. They got a few bites to that. Anyone who watched the darts this week? Well, here's Luke Little as dad, 38. He's just announced how proud he is of his son. And when someone buys you both a bath bomb, you can only have a shower. Classic.
Inventive.
Inventive certainly is. Perhaps best to keep your sliding doors closed. And one big difference between men and women is that if a woman says smell this, it usually smells nice. Here's one for you, mother. How men do shopping, how women do shopping.
Oh, yeah.
Don't tell us off, Julie. And I'm looking forward to summer. The rain gets warmer.
That's probably the only.
Today's 3-year-olds can switch on laptops and open their favourite apps. This guy, he says, me, when I was 3, I ate mud. And using your husband's old shorts as a tank top. Meanwhile, in Sunderland. And just paid £20 for a 3-mile taxi ride to the laundrette. I feel like I've been taken to the cleaners.
Oh
dear.
And I saw 2 sheep today dressed as George Michael and Andrew Ridgely. Talk about mutton dressed as Wham.
Oh dear.
And if you're feeling bad after Christmas, lads, think about Spider-Man. Been a tough year for him. Not making any more films. An insider's view of Luton Town.
Oh yes.
Thank you, Simon. And
the ladies are together.
Everyone is sitting here with their engagement rings and promise rings, and here I am with me onion rings. That was one I got at New Year. A couple of Star Trek ones for you. I'm thinking about breaking up with the invisible girl I'm dating. To be honest, I don't know what you saw in it, says Spock. And I got you a boomerang for Christmas. I told you I wanted one, but I can't remember why. It'll come back to you. And when is bin day? Question we all ask. Today, yesterday, tomorrow, or copy the neighbours.
It's D.
And can't have a shower without singing Bloody Enya now, says this guy. Scale away, scale away, scale away.
Oh, yeah.
And The Rock tweeted, no one can defeat me. Paper replied, are you sure about that? And Peter Dinklage, shortest month and you select me. This will not be forgotten, says the Game of Thrones star.
Yeah.
Class.
And the winner this week, Frank Chipper. Honestly, won't be shocked if we turn up and they've agreed to let us start 1-0 up. Well done. Some wonderful bites yesterday, mate. Some wonderful bites. If you've got a tweet of the week, send it to me or the lads, or stick it on the Facebook group, nufc matters. Join that today. A simple question from Steve. He says, will Eddie play the strongest team tomorrow? Answers on a postcard. Yes, Steve, I said in the chat, and I think he will. Listening to his press conference today, Mitch.
Why not? What's he got to lose? I think he'll go with the strongest 11, no doubt.
Steve?
Simple as that.
Has to. He's got no option. It needs to be the strongest team because it's probably now the most important game of the season for Eddie and for the city. You've got to go out there, and in previous seasons, it's come to the third round of the cup and players have been rested. It's not going to happen this time. First of all, he hasn't got that many players to rest. He's got such an injury list, but he's got to go out and he's got to put his strongest team out there. It would be the biggest capital sin you could possibly have if you decided to rest half a dozen of them and put the youngsters in.
Absolutely.
Or the also-rans or the deadwood, as some of us have called them in the past. It just can't happen. It has to be strongest team. It's the biggest game of the season, Steve.
It
is. George, he's going to put his strongest team out because ultimately it's a big game for us.
Does Eddie Howe, would Eddie Howe really risk being the man that's remembered for losing this particular match? Because he'd be remembered, whatever happens, win or lose. So even for his own sake, he needs to put out his strongest team. And I would have thought there'll be enough nous in that dressing room, the Trippiers and the Burns and others around the place that know about these things. It'll be drilling it into their mates what this is about, surely, including the manager. I suspect they'll be saying to him, "Hey, we've got to get this right, boss," and he'll be up with it as well. So yes, strongest team by far. And if he's short, I've found an old pair of boots at the garage.
Good stuff. I think a few people would want you to play, George. But yeah, I think he plays his strongest team. He said he would today. It's the Premier League and the FA Cup that Newcastle have to the highest place in the Premier League and get as far as they can in the FA Cup. So yeah, he's got to do that. Potential heroes in Mitch. Where what are you looking at that team? We know more or less what's going to be on display tomorrow. Tom Dixon suggests Dubravka, Livramento, Fabian Schär, Botman, Byrne, Bruno, Longstaff, Miley, Gordon, Joe and Isaac. It's not going to be far away. Trippier, of course, was having a fitness test today. Could potentially be back in tomorrow. I think he's a potential match winner if he is available tomorrow. But what's your view? What's your take, Mitch, on potential match winners? We've had a few heroes over the years.
Even with the injury list we've got match winners in every position. In every position. We should be able to outmuscle them at set plays. We've got more height. We should be able to stamp our mould on the game from midfield. We've got a striker, the likes of which their centre-backs, one of whom is really a midfielder, have never faced. Never. We've got people in all areas of the pitch that could hurt them. And so, look for our heroes. They'll all be heroes. We'll win as a team. We'll lose as a team. We come away from Wearside with a very good victory. Everybody's a hero for me. And that's the way we all do it. We stand shoulder to shoulder. It's a slightly thicker than usual black and white line down there. We've got our part to play. We make that count. And I'm quite sure there's enough experienced heads and enough local heads in that dressing room to know what the significance of this game is. And I would be very disappointed if we can't dictate the play tomorrow. And I think the first 15 minutes are highly significant. We've talked about the referee. We've talked about potentially turning their fans inward. I think there'll definitely be 2 or 3 naughty little niggly challenges here and there. What I think we've got to do is be bigger and not react, because I'll tell you straight away, the way they'll niggle and foul won't be as clever as the way we can. It'll be much more industrial. And so I think we've not got to react to that. I think Dunno's absolutely right. Discipline. Discipline in terms of team shape, discipline in terms of keeping our head. We do all of those things. Everybody has the potential to be a hero.
Okay, Steve, your thoughts?
Quite agree. Absolutely. 100%. We've got quality. We've got players that cost £60 million, £40 million, £35 million in that squad. We've got players, the vast majority of the team that was put up there earlier played in Milan, played in Dortmund, in front of the yellow wall, played at PSG. They've got the experience of hostile crowds. They've got the experience of being able to stand up and face that hostility that comes from the terraces. They've got the knowledge of what they have achieved as a team in the past, and they've got quality. There's no question about that. It's often wrong to do a compare and contrast, but when it comes down to it, you always do it, don't you? You always go, well, they've got a player who's come out the non-league here, and they've got someone from the Irish league there, and they've got the brother of somebody who's a superstar, but that doesn't necessarily make him a superstar. There's all sorts of little stories. There's no league captain on the pitch. We know that. So when Mitch talks about discipline, it was always the league captain or lack of discipline that cost them, wasn't it? In terms of getting the fans worked up. What Newcastle have got to be, and I'll throw Bruno and I'll throw Joe Linton into the hat here. They've got to be very careful the first 20 minutes, because you can't give Craig Paulson an opportunity to get the yellow card out, because once he does that, then you know that if you're putting tackles in that even warrant half a yellow card, if there was such a thing, it'll be converted to a yellow card. No doubt. Because that's the nature of what their fans have got behind them. They've got the 30-odd thousand who are going to be baying for blood for every tackle that we put in, and are going to be moaning like hell at every tackle that's pulled up that they put in. And so the referee and the linesman and the fourth official are going to be under immense pressure. And as somebody reminded us right at the very start, there's no VAR tomorrow, which I suppose is in some respects is a good thing, but in other respects it's very difficult from a player's perspective when you're playing in a particular competition all the way through the season where VAR is there, and then all of a sudden it's not available anymore. It's a ridiculous state of affairs that you have a competition where VAR is only available at a ground if it's already set up for VAR. So in other words, if it's a Premier League v Premier League, Premier League v Championship, no VAR. That kind of, I suppose you could say that's a bit of an advantage to those players who are used to not having to put up with VAR. But this is all just part of the rich tapestry of what the game's going to be. We've just got to be ultra professional. We've got to manage what we've got, and we've got to manage the occasion, and we've got to use our quality to actually stamp our authority on the game in the proper way, because right across that pitch, we've got better players in every single position than they have. That I don't doubt for one moment.
Yeah, I think the class will tell. George, who's your potential match winners tomorrow?
Neil's right, all over the pitch in a real sense, just simply because we in every position we're the better team. But in terms of the actual game, I mean, we've got people who know all about playing in derbies. mean, Trippier's played in the bloody Madrid derbies, for goodness sake. Can I get much higher than that? And Anthony Gordon's played in lots of Merseyside derbies and scored a few goals in Merseyside derbies. So he could do that for her. But I still think, and Neil said it earlier without mentioning his name, if Isak's on form tomorrow, he's frightened their back four to death. And I expect him to be the match winner. If you know, hand on heart, that's where I would go. But it could be any of them. And who knows if Miggy's playing and he finds his goal scoring form, he could be the match winner and he'd score a couple of goals like he did at Fulham, that sort of thing. But I if you press as hard, it would be Isak's going to be the one, because they won't have the pace or the nous to stop him legally, and that's where the referee's got to come in and protect people like Isak in this game, because it's going to be hard.
VAR, it's a big issue at the best of times because it's absolutely useless, Mitch. They're making an absolute pig's ear of a game. It was brought in, and we've talked about it plenty of times on the show. I talk about it a lot on the breakfast show. But I think the one thing I disagree with is that in the third round, some games like the one last night have got VAR, but our game tomorrow hasn't. And I'm not saying ours should have VAR. I'm saying either all games in the third round should have VAR, or there shouldn't be any. So for me, if the third round has teams from a lower division that don't normally have VAR, then we'll just say in the third round there is no VAR, it is switched off. That's my view.
I think there should be no VAR in this competition. It breaks the spirit of the rules of football as the FA intend. That those rules should be the same, whether it's 11 against 11 on St. Peter's Field in Wallsend, or whether it's 11 versus 11 at Wembley on Cup Final Day. Within this competition, because it's outside of the Premier League, it encompasses amateur teams, it encompasses teams from lower divisions, it encompasses Premier League teams. I think it's a nonsense to have the game switched on, the VAR switched on only at Premier League teams when they are at home. It means, Mark's absolutely right, changes the entire competition.
Yeah.
An away draw for us tomorrow rather, changes the competition for both teams as opposed to us getting a home draw, because VAR would be switched on for once at St James's Park. Now, imagine this scenario. It's 89 minutes. It's 1-1. Isaac's clean through. He goes down. And it's been proven there was no contact, but the referees give the penalty. We've scored the penalty. We've knocked them out. They're actually at a disadvantage from being at home. That's a nonsense. In terms of the spirit of the game, that's a nonsense. And you're right. For me, it should be everywhere where possible. And if it's not possible somewhere, not at all. This mix and match never works in football. When you start to mix and match rules, it always falls apart. Because I can guarantee you, in this third round, somebody will miss out on going through the next round of competition with a shit decision that would have been reversed, or otherwise, if VAR had been used in that ground. Sunderland have a ground set up and could quite easily cope with VAR. It would take not a lot to set that up. However, because they don't use it in the Championship, not switched on. Like I say, that might hurt them tomorrow. How much of a nonsense is that to be disadvantaged by playing at home?
Yeah.
So I think it really should be an all or nothing, because when you start mixing it up like that, you're going to get somebody tomorrow goes tumbling out of this competition, and somebody will say, had there been VAR there? Tough. And that's, it's crazy to mix and match like that. Calvert-Lewin last night would not have been sent off outside of a Premier League ground. You've seen the two Crystal Palace players snickering. I've seen the pictures. Anderson and one of the others absolutely pissing their pants because they know what's going on. Everybody on that pitch knew what was going on. Maybe apart from Nathaniel Klein, who could maybe roll over just once or twice a little bit more. But other than that, you know, that's a nonsense. If that was Everton against Hull at Hull, he'd still be on the pitch. Nothing doing, you know, and so we're going to get more. We'll get more tomorrow, no doubt. Let's just hope they're not at the stadium late.
Steve, it is a farce, isn't it? Not having VAR, you know, for all these games.
Yeah, but you know what really concerns me is that we're going into the game, no VAR, but we're going in with a referee who is he capable of refereeing a game now without VAR? Because he spends his entire time in the Premier League using VAR, relying on VAR, relying on his mistakes being rectified, etc., etc. That worries me when it comes down to it. I mean, I know it's fine lines and fine margins, but the very fact that you've got a top-class Premier League referee who spends his entire season relying on VAR and having the support of VAR or the backing of VAR, whatever you want to call it, and yet he goes into this game and it's not there. He was the VAR referee, I think, yesterday, wasn't he? In the game,
yeah, he was.
Which is a bit ironic, you know. There's a perfectly good tackle and he ends up calling him back and saying, "I think you need to look at that again." You know, I think that the referees are in a really difficult position now, and I think that going in and playing it and officiating a cup game like this, when you're used to having VAR and not having it, is a big problem.
I tell you what, last night has done no for her. To give her an insight into his mind, because all he was talking about was studs up.
Yeah. Yep.
So I hope the hell Eddie's telling all of our players tomorrow, if you go into a challenge, make sure you point your toe down and keep your studs down. Because this man is obsessed with studs up being dangerous.
Yeah.
He's obviously never played football before at any kind of decent level. But that seemed to be the mindset. The mindset seemed to be studs was up there, thought it was dangerous.
Yeah. Despite the fact that the leg was bent, there was no force behind the leg, no momentum going forward. It was never ever going to hurt if he had caught him in the first place.
There was no malice of intent in that challenge whatsoever, other than to win the football, which he did very well. Yeah. And so if you've got somebody whose only interpretation of whether it's dangerous or not seems to be if your studs were up or not, I hope all of our players have got that in their head tomorrow.
George, your views?
Well, you three have said it. It should either be played with VAR or it shouldn't be played with VAR. To have it at some and not at others, as Neil rightly says, changes the whole spirit of the game, and particularly of the FA Cup. I mean, this is a competition that's been going on for months on tiny little playing fields all over the country. Little clubs being desperate to get into the next round and eventually, getting to play the higher clubs. They're all at a disadvantage because if they get through, they're not going to get the benefits of VAR. That is just pointed out quite eloquently. They're only going to get the disadvantages of VAR because it's not going to be there to help them, and that really does make an absolute nonsense. So I agree with you. It either should be there or it shouldn't be there. The people are talking on the strap on the bottom about the merits of VAR. VAR died for me a few weeks ago when there was a series of really strange decisions. It wasn't helped the other night at Liverpool because some of the decisions there were absolutely galling, as were some of the pundits' comments, like McManaman saying that, it couldn't be a penalty because of the intent, me backside. It's starting to make a mess of football, not help at all. So they've either got to stop and start again or just get rid of it altogether.
I'm going to throw one into the mix here, Steve. If, God forbid, this game goes to a replay, will there be VAR?
Well, of course there will.
That's a huge question. It's a huge question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that happened in last season's competition, yes.
Bonkers. Absolutely crazy. It is crazy.
Nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense, mate. How can you effectively be disadvantaged by playing at home? because that's what the Mackems are. They
Exactly.
don't have the full benefit of something they could have because that ground's big enough and their setup's big enough. They might not have the money to switch all the lights on all the time, but they've got the facilities there, and they should be able to say, "Yeah, let's set it up, let's do it."
Robert Dowling in the chat, you get my back in 100%. He says, let's get back to the days where we would pass back to keepers and pick the ball up and no offsides. But, you know, honestly.
Yeah, well, and real throw-ins as well.
Don't get George started about throw-ins. We've got 35 minutes left. Time for a little bit of Elliot. Elliot's joke of the week this week. I went to the doctors with hearing problems. He said, can you describe the symptoms? I said, Home has a fat bloke and Marge has big blue hair. Classic, Elliot. Thank you for that submission, and we will have another Elliot joke next week. Just out of interest, lads, before we move on, there was your team, the last outing against the Mackems. 1-1 draw, Mitrovic scoring. Elliot was in goal. Daryl Janmat played right back. Chancellor Mbemba and Jamal Lascelles played centre half. Jack Colback was at left back. Midfield, John Joe Shelby, Genie Wijnaldum, remember him? Andros Townsend, still plying his trade at Luton. And Jose Perez, Musa Sissoko, and Mitrovic. Wow, what a throwback. Paul Dummett was also part of the squad that day. So you know, two players have remained from that particular team. But incredible. So and it's 53 games all. That's excluding friendlies. 53 wins apiece. So local pride to play for, and a chance to take the lead in a game we might not see for a considerable amount of time, unless the Mackems decide to join us in the Premier League. Okay, as we look ahead to the match, we always get Tyne Stato's view. So let us bring him in and hear what he's got to say. And believe it or not as well, Scunny Mag is also sent us something. Which one will play for us? I'll tell you what. We did talk about this. Here we go. Here's Scunny Mag's video.
Hi folks, Scunny Mag Paul. Mackems away coming up. So this will be a little different to normal because we're in a bubble and the checking IDs to get into any bars in Sunderland. Apparently you need a valid matchday ticket and your wedding certificate with both yours and your sister's signature on it. So we'll not bother even trying. Anybody with tickets for our end will be leaving nice and early on the buses from St James's. They've said they're going to serve beer and food all day, both before the game and after, until we get to the coaches. Honestly, I think we'll drink them dry. They'll probably run out of ale before kick-off, not being used to a crowd and all. But if you do fancy a little breakfast or a snack or a get-together beforehand, then we have about 16 million Gregs to choose from, dotted around the city centre, as you can see. And there's a fair choice of Wetherspoons as well. Starting out at Shields Road with the High Main, the Lloyds down on the quayside, just up from the Swing Bridge, the Five Swans up near Haymarket, the Mile Castle on the corner near Central Station, just up from where the Union Rooms used to be. They all famously open early. Don't know what time they'll be serving beer. It might change because of the game that's on, but the breakfasts aren't half bad, unless you prefer a nice sausage, cheese and bean melt or a pizza slice. I'm not going to do a score prediction. I don't like them. They always bite me in the backside. But I will say I hope we batter these. I really hope we batter these. Enjoy the day, and one final note, no seagulls were violated in the making of this video.
Thank you, Scunny Mag. Loved it. Here's Tyne Stato.
Hello and a happy new year. What a second game for Newcastle in the year. The Tyne derby is back. So far 154 games in the history of the rivalry, with the record being pretty evenly split. Newcastle winning 53, losing 51 and drawing 50 in all competitions. You know far too well that our record lately is not great. Our last win coming back at the Stadium of Light in 2011, that famous Ryan Taylor over the wall goal. Since then we have played 9, drawing 3 and losing 6. Actually we lost 6 in a row between 2013 and 2016. Part of that run, Sunderland won 3 in a row at home, which is the first time they do this in their entire history. They've never won 4 in a row at home against Newcastle in all competitions. When it comes to the FA Cup ties between the two teams, the last 2 were won by Sunderland, but the last one took place back in 1955-1956. What can give us great hope, apart from being the far better team, is also Sunderland's record against Premier League opposition when they are in the lower divisions. When they are in the lower division, they have faced 4 Premier League in the past 17 years, and they were defeated in each occasion. The last time they eliminated the Premier League opposition when they were in the lower division was back in 2005 against Crystal Palace. So let's see what happens on Saturday. For sure the tension will be very high, but we need to end our bad run of form, and what a better place to do it than our dear neighbor stadium. Cheers.
Yes.
Thank you to the lads. Mark Byers, 3 words for this weekend are, I'm not going to read that out, but I think it's quite self-explanatory. And Robert Dowling says, I reckon PSG are thinking of paying 115 million for Bruno. We'll come to that before the end of the programme. Don't worry about that. He also says, Arsenal have already sorted the no penalty handball in the box lock already. Another one of those rule changes there. But yes, and yes, Jules, Scully Mount does his own intros, unfortunately. So sometimes they do come through a little bit loud. Yeah, okay. Well, we set it up nicely, Mitch. Let's talk football and Sunderland. Go on.
I've got another 3 words for you. If you're peckish after the game and you fancy a Chinese, what will take you into the car park is age of consent.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah.
No, back to football. No, look, it's poised nicely, isn't it? And I think this last few days, I feel like the pressure's been taken off us massively. They've scored a massive own goal in what they've done, like we said, right at the start of the show. And I think, we can go in it looking at our glass half full. They've come out with it because, again, they're soothing themselves. Man for man, pound for pound, even with the injuries we've got a squad that is of measurably better quality. But that doesn't guarantee you results, as we've shown recently against Luton and recently against Nottingham Forest. We've got to be on our mettle. We've got to be focused in that first 10 to 15 minutes. Not give them any quarter, not let them get any toehold in the game, not let them get their fans up and behind them, get their fans chattering and nervous, going back the other way. That would be my message to the lads. Andre makes some interesting points, as he always does. Wouldn't he make a great Bond villain? I think he'd be fantastic. And, the records are always there to be broken. Like I say, they can have that 6 in a row and no, you've not beat with for so long. But like I say, there was a generation of Tynesiders who went without saying we lose to Sunderland. 23 years, I think it was, wasn't it? Something like that. It was some sort of
34 down at their ground.
Right. Wow. It was a long time. And so I think these things come in cycles, and it's time for the cycle to change. And what a better way to kickstart our season than to kick some ass on our side.
Steve, Eddie Howe didn't want to call it a kickstart in his press conference. He called it a reboot.
Yes.
And he certainly doesn't believe his job's under threat. He speaks to the owners daily. So wasn't entertaining any of that. Prefer to see it as a reboot, though, and it was a perfect game to do it, and wants to progress in this competition like he had wanted to progress in every competition as far as they can, and wants to put his FA Cup record right because, Cambridge, we lost 1-0. We lost against Sheffield Wednesday. hasn't been a happy competition for him. He does have one thing on his side, which again was mentioned in the press conference today, and that was that in his last game at the Stadium of Light against Sunderland as a manager, he came away with a win for Bournemouth and he relegated Sunderland.
Great start, that, Steve.
Did
Eddie mention that, or was it presented to him? Or
it was presented to him on a plate very nicely
right.
by one of the journalists.
I thought it might have been. It's a fascinating game. I mean, it really is in terms of once we start to analyse what what the lineup will be, what Sunderland can do, what we can do. Eddie's press conference, he said some other interesting little snippets as well, Steve. And I think what was really interesting was he said we actually trained this week, and he was pleased. He was pleased with what he was seeing. I mean, DME, I don't think they've trained since the cup draw was made. More than likely, it's been such a hectic 3 or 4 weeks since that draw was made. I'm looking at the team that he played on Monday night, and then I'm looking at obviously Trippier out. Trippier, understand, who's having a fitness test at lunchtime or just after, and then that would dictate whether or not he was going to be available. Would you risk Trippier? Would I risk Trippier? Probably, if I was in Eddie Howe's position. Would I, however, drop Livramento? Probably not. I would move Livramento back on the left-hand side. And Dan Burn would be the one who would miss out. I would possibly consider bringing Lascelles back in, because I think that the Lascelles and Shaw partnership works well. But there again, there's a slight worry over Botman and his knee. Something that Mitch and I have spoken about this week, and you've been party to some of that conversation as well, because it was quite interesting to hear what Botman said about the fact that he played for a couple of games where he actually had a torn ACL. It wasn't ruptured, but it was torn, and I thought that was quite telling. And there's been all sorts of changes made in the medical department. So having Lascelles on the bench at least is important now that he's fit. But I think probably you would go with Shaw and Botman as your two central defenders. And then your midfield. Where's it going to take us? Well, we know that the people who are a shoe-in, and this is where, for me, Longstaff could be the match winner for us. I've been trying to think of who the match winner could be, and I was listening to Mitch earlier on going, if he's on his game, he's certainly a match winner. But sometimes things happen, don't they, in games, and sometimes you look at the players in the past who have won matches for us, players who have got vital goals. You look at Michael Chopra in Shearer's last outing as a black and white at the Stadium of Light, and that sneaky little goal that he scored after being on the pitch for less than 12 seconds, a Geordie getting a goal. And you can see it again, and then you look at defenders, the number of times the defenders who have scored goals rather than strikers. You look at Nikos Dabizas and people like that who got goals. So it's going to be a fascinating in terms of the lineup. It's going to be fascinating in terms of how we go about it. We've spoken earlier about how professional we've got to be, how professional the players have got to be, but I think we've just got to manage the first 10 minutes, because I think they will come at us. They've had injury problems themselves to contend with, and let's not forget that they've got a new manager in situ. They sacked Mowbray after the draw was made, and they brought Beale in. He hasn't spent that much time with his squad. He had a disastrous first game. He managed to pull it together I think he's got a draw and a win under his belt now. And he's under pressure. There's no question about that, because the expectation will be zero in some quarters for him, and the excuses will be already written for him if they don't manage to beat us. But he'll be champing at the bit, because he'll want to keep going. And he'll want to really stamp his position at the football club. And this is where Eddie's got to be a little bit cleverer. And I think where we've probably just got to be always careful of is where substitutions and how we manage those aspects of the game as the game goes on. I thought we played all right in the second half against Liverpool. I mean, we got absolutely battered in the first half in terms of what Liverpool, the opportunities Liverpool had, but we held our own. It was 0-0 at half time. People are forgetting that. The fact that the score ended up 4-2. But ironically, it was VAR that did us in certain aspects of the game, and it's not there tomorrow, as we've already spoken about as well, Steve. So I'm just looking forward to it. I'm just looking forward to Newcastle being able to, and Newcastle players being able to show what quality they've got on the pitch, and moving on into the fourth round, because this is an important competition for us. I think that win tomorrow, and I think that you look at some of the other teams that are playing each other in the Premier League. Premier League teams playing each other. There's gaps will suddenly open up, and for me, it's still the finest competition in the world. It has everything. Shocks all over the fixture list. We always look forward to the draw, though we don't have it on a Monday anymore at lunchtime like it used to be. I go back to the old days at school when you were crowding around listening to Radio 2, waiting for the draw at 12:30. All of that type of thing. It's that kind of aspect, that romance has disappeared. But in other respects, when it comes down to the actual kickoff, the romance of the FA Cup is still there. Thank goodness. And it would be great if we could round off the season, get into a cup final, and this time the FA Cup final after last season being in the Carabao Cup final. What a great opportunity it would be for us to actually get some silverware on, and this is how the players have got to look at it. This is how Eddie's got to look at it, and I'm certain that the people behind the scenes at Newcastle, the owners, etc., will be looking at it in exactly the same way as me.
Yeah. Okay, George. Huge game this for us. Certainly one I'm looking forward to. Just give us your views on how you see this game going.
Yeah. I think if the Newcastle team that turns up and shows their class, there's only one team going to win, that's for sure. But as we've all said more than once, this is a derby game. It's not just a cup tie, it's a derby game as well. And that always adds spice to it, and inevitably it will. If the Newcastle players are professional enough, can do something in the early start of the game, that'll quiet the crowd down, and that'll make a big difference as well. But they mustn't get drawn into anything, because I've seen one or two of the Sunderland matches on the box, and one or two of their players have the ability to draw opponents into things, and it's invariably the opponent that gets the wrong end of it. Well, don't want any of that from Newcastle United tomorrow. No, play professionally, show your skill, show your class, and the game's yours and into the next round. It's just so exciting, though. But people talk about must-win games. This, for Newcastle United, this is a must-win game. We'll never hear the end of this if we want to lose this one. It would go on forever and ever and ever. And they already crow about the 6-0 and all that sort of thing. Well, this could put all that right in one fell swoop. And that would be great. That would be lovely. I'd love it, as a man once said.
We'll get your predictions just before the end of the show. We're going to go into two lookalike. Thanks to all the usual people who send them in. We've had some great ones from Rita and from Tom as well. Luke Humphreys and Hugh Jackman. Luke, of course, winner of the darts this week. Fantastic tournament, especially the quarters, the semis and the final. But thank you for that. It's a good likeness, that one. And another one, Luke Littler and Tyrone from Curry.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a good one, that one.
It is very, very good. We've got this one from Rita, Beetlejuice and Rod Stewart. Clever. And Happy New Year, Hasty, she says.
Thanks, Rita.
Two rather dapper-looking Steve Hasties there,
Yeah.
if ever I'd seen one. Another one from Mark Byers. He says, Bunting and the Moose.
Very good, that.
Very, very good. Yeah, excellent. And this one from Jules. She went, Hasty bidding Christmas goodnight.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you see in bars, isn't it? You bump into Steve Hasty no matter where you go. Kieran Clark and Ethan Hawke from Tom.
Yeah, that's not bad, Tom.
Staying with the darts theme, a Pug and John McDonald.
Oh, spot on.
Just because it's not you. And Rui Faria and Joey Barton.
Wow.
Joey Barton in the news again today, by the way. I'm not sure whether
you've seen the news every day.
He is, yeah. And Jan Decker.
Wow.
Not bad. And Stephen Kennedy says, I've just discovered Jurgen Klopp's family tree. couple of lookalikes in there. We had another darts one. Again, it was the same one. The guy of Coronation Street as Luke Little. This one was Rob Cross. I can see the similarities. He's got a bald head. We'll leave it at that. This one, Marley's Ghost appeared on tonight's show. Another lookalike there. Steve, that was last week when your picture froze.
It was class.
Very, very good. Number 3, that was number 3. Sorry, Mark Byers and Steve Bunton. He sent Steve Bunton and the Moose. So that was number 3. This is number 2. A steak that looks like Putin.
I saw that. That is really spooky, that.
Very good. Very good. And the winner was one which was submitted a few weeks ago and I lost it, but I refound it. And it's this one. Jacob Murphy dressing as his brother. I mean, Josh Murphy dressing as Jacob Murphy. Very good. Great lookalike that. You can't beat a lookalike when it's a twin brother.
No.
Great stuff. Thanks for sending them in. As always, get them over to us at the usual places. Stick them on the Facebook page if you don't have us on your social. And when the derby comes around, which isn't very often, you always get sent various things. This was Tom Maley's statue, which I tweeted out earlier on today for a derby game back in the day. Quite a strange photo and sculpture that, but I thought I'd share it. And nonetheless, he's the man who did the Shearer and Sir Bobby Robson statues outside the ground. Interesting concept, that one. But thank you for sending that in. And I did stick it out on Twitter. Before we get the predictions, lads, for the game, let's just get your quick thoughts on the Bruno situation. A few people tweeting about it tonight. Is it time to cash in on Bruno? Says Sean, he's been linked with PSG. It's hard for me to say, but I'd say yes. We need serious reinforcements. Look at Villa after cashing in on Grealish. 100 million would turn into 300 million. What's your thoughts on PSG's Bruno link, says David Spillett? And would you accept 100 million for Bruno? It would help our financial fair play no end, says Michael. Mitch, is it time to cash in?
Well, the release clause doesn't kick in until this summer. So if they want them now, it's not 100 million. It's excessively more than. And if they want to pay 200 million, every player has a price.
Mm-hmm.
Every player, we've got to, as a fan base, learn to say thank you. It's time to move on for one reason or another. And not feel bitter about it because that's part of our programming. Because we're used to Gaza disappearing, Beardsley disappearing, Waddle disappearing. You know, when they get good, they disappear. So if PSG are seriously interested right now and they want them right now, they can have them right now. But that'll be 200 million, please. It's not the 100 million of the release clause. What would 200 million do to our FFP? I think it would make it a significantly different beast. I look at what West Ham have been able to do post selling Rice. I think they are a better team and a better squad, having let Rice go with who they've spent the money on, and they've spent very wisely. And so I would be disappointed because Bruno's the kind of player we should be building a team that aspires to play in the Champions League every season around. However, if the long-term goal is worth the short-term hit, it would probably have to be considered seriously. But Bruno seems very happy here. He doesn't seem to want to go anywhere. The squad seem very happy with him. Everybody seems to just rally around. Looking at the pictures from the players' dining area today, lots of love being shared between my potential midfield starting three on tomorrow. So it would be a bold move. It would risk bringing the wrath of the fans the way the Mackhams have this week on themselves. I personally just can't see it because I can't see PSG being prepared to be held to ransom because I don't think they've got the liquidity. But if they have, let's take their eyes out and go back for the Sockets.
Steve, are you in agreement?
No, keep them at all costs. That will be my first thing. We're not having to get rid of Bruno because of FFP. We're having to get rid of him because of the restrictions that have been imposed by the six at the top of the Premier League. That's why. And yet we're all clambering, going, "Oh, it's FFP, it's FFP." It's time for the club to get ballsy and the rest of the Premier League to get ballsy. Start saying, let's take this FFP on. Let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of even if it's kept, but the restrictions are not as strangling of the other 14 as they are for the 6, because that's the way it's sitting at the moment. There's no question in my mind that the business plan that Amanda put to AIF is not the business plan that we're now having to work alongside and under. There was no mention of all of these restrictions that were in place when the club was bought and when PIF came in, and we are definitely being restricted simply because of who bought us. And yet there's never been, and there will be, no restriction with Manchester United and Ineos. There was no restriction with Chelsea. Chelsea was given away by the government to the Americans. We still haven't seen what happened to the £1 billion that was supposed to be going to charity. You know, that's all been forgotten about. It's amazing what can be forgotten about. And Chelsea have played fast and loose with the rules, and now all of a sudden the rules haven't been allowed to play fast and loose. The rules are being tightened for everyone else. So, 8-year contracts dotted all over the place for Chelsea, getting round FFP, and now everyone has to fall in line with a 5-year restriction on contracts that impact all of those type of things. This is for me, it's an absolute joke, Steve. But in terms of Bruno, you build your team around Bruno, and it's up to the Dan Ashworths and it's up to the Darren Eales world to get in there and start fighting for Newcastle United and start fighting against the other clubs, because there's no question that we are being saddled with something that isn't right and wasn't right. It's either that or our owners go out and go, stuff it. We'll take the Premier League to court. We'll take the other clubs to court. We'll take UEFA to court. We've got deep enough pockets to do it. Man City have managed to hold it off for God knows how many years now by threats. PSG have managed to get round it for years and years. Lots of other clubs. Look at the way Barcelona have been let off. Look at the way Madrid have been allowed to flourish. Look at what's happened in Italy over the years. So maybe it's time that whole aspect and it just goes for a free for all. I think football would be far better off with it. what other industry do you sit there and go, you know what? We're gonna stop you spending. We're gonna stop you investing and growing your own business because the rest of us don't trust you. You know, Mr. Asda, we don't trust you. So I'm Mr. Morrison's and I'm going to say, don't spend that money, or I'm Mr. Aldi or Mr. Sainsbury. No. We're going to stop you from building loads more and investing loads more in your business because we're worried about you. We're worried that you might not be able to afford it. Absolute tosh. Just throw it away. Throw it in the bin. Go hell for leather.
Stick it in the bin with VAR.
Exactly.
George.
Steve's said almost all I wanted to say, and that is it's not about whether we want to sell Bruno or any other player. It's about fairness, and we just haven't been treated fairly at all in all of this. And the only way out of it, in my view, is that if Amanda and a crew can sort out the golf, we'll sort out the bloody football as well. You know, if you're that good at it, do it for your football club, do it for your fans. Because it'd be welcomed by not just our fans, but a lot of other fans. It must since the Everton debacle and now Nottingham Forest and others around the country look like they're going to lose points or be in serious trouble, even relegation. Fans are waking up to the fact that, well, hold on, what about them up there that's been doing what they like and getting away with it for all these years? Isn't it time we had a shout? So the only way to have a shout is get rid of it. So it's got to be challenged. Maybe it's that Amanda could persuade other chairmen to get together and not just us take them to court, but a lot of people. The European Court's judgment on the European Super League, for me, opened a lot of doors. It opens a lot of doors in football, and is as big a decision as the Bosman decision. We haven't seen the ramifications yet, but it's that monumental. And if they're saying they could have it because of competition, well, what about what's the FFP doing to competition? Steve rightly says, we want to invest, can't invest, we won't allow you. That's just nonsense. So I wouldn't want Bruno to go. This is where the question was started. Because, like Steve, if we're really serious and he's a top player, then when we need to be building around him, not selling him. And if FFP is the reason, that's the least good reason for selling him, in my view. It's got if there was a good football reason for doing it, I wouldn't be unhappy. But there isn't, because he's a good player, and we desperately need to keep good players.
Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't sell Bruno. Certainly not at the moment. Build your team around your best players. That's what you do. And we don't need to sell players. We can get around this financial fair play fairly and squarely. If it takes a little bit longer than we hoped, then that's the way it'll be. But cracking show tonight. No apologies for making it more about the derby than anything else tonight, because it's very rare that we get a chance to go through, and talk about a game like this. Yes, George?
Just there's been lots of people popping up memories. Well, tomorrow is a year since my dear Marjorie passed away, and I've got to thank all of you for getting me through this year. Not just you lads, but the whole platform and lots of watchers out there who've turned up at the food bank to say hello. That's been very important to me this year. So. I find it incredible the year's gone already, and painful one at that. But thank you, everybody, and thank you for watching the show as well.
Great stuff. Predictions. Yeah, proud of you. Very proud of you. Predictions then. Mitch, let's come to you first. Have you got the dice first of all? Yeah.
Yeah, ready. And it says 1-2.
Okay, so 2-1, which is my prediction. I believe Newcastle will win 2-1 tomorrow. I hope it's more, but I do think it'll be 2-1. What about you, then, Mitch? What's your prediction?
2-0. I think it'll be easier than we think.
Okay, Steve.
There's being bold, and on such an anniversary tomorrow, Newcastle United could do us a favour.
Yes, 100%, mate. 100%. Thoughts with you and all the family, mate, and you, George. Steve, prediction?
I'm going 2-0 as well, Steve. I think a 2-0 win. I think that's what's on the cards. And I know Mod should be looking down on it and going, well done, lads.
Yeah.
George?
I'm going for 3-0. I think he's absolutely right. I think it's going to be easier than we imagined, and it'll come out of 3-0. Just another one about Margie. She used to watch the occasional show, but Steve knows she loved the music. The music at the beginning was her favourite.
Yeah, she loved the long stands, and have a memorable weekend, everybody out there. Enjoy it, but most importantly, if you go into the game or if you're in town, wherever you're watching it, stay safe. It's very important. And if you are traveling to the Stadium of Light, please remember that we are, we're representing our club, but we're also representing the city. We can sing, and we can make sure that we know that the Sunderland fans know we're there, but just behave. Let's not drag the club's name and our reputations through the mud. Let's enjoy ourselves and come back with a place in the 4th round. Go on, Mitch.
They've madly given me access to the NUFC Dubai Twitter account tomorrow, so I'll try and get a few videos out of the atmosphere in Dubai tomorrow. So you can see what it's like with 170 odd Geordies going nuts, hopefully, in Dubai.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Well, I am back in the morning on a pre-record. For those of you who aren't going to the game, you will be able to tune in at 10 o'clock to see me and Ben Jacobs. We chat about the big match, the FA Cup game against Sunderland, and we also do about half an hour on transfers. We try to get to the bottom of some of the names that have been fired around: Gassari, Firmino, De Gea, to name but 3. Obviously lots of topics to discuss, but we specifically dealt with the derby and with transfers, so well worth tuning in. And then 6 o'clock Sunday, we will be doing the aftermath of the derby. We will be back with the professionals, first professional show of the new year, and we'll be doing 90 minutes, so an hour and a half of the professionals on Sunday night. So if you like to tune in to see Mitch and Stu, then 90 minutes, 6 o'clock Sunday, tune in to come and see us. But look forward to seeing you then, Mitch, and Steve, George. Have a great weekend.
Yeah,
and,
thanks everybody.
How are the lads? Take care.